The Leedstown
What?
Resolves.
Oh,
Oops,
the
sorry.
Leedstown Resolves. That's okay. We still have to do the introductions.
Yeah. Okay, take two.
Jumping ahead of us here.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'm Erin Creighton. I'm the Assistant Branch Manager and Adult Services Department Head for the Fredericksburg branch of the Central Rappahannock Regional Library. I am pleased, as usual, to be joined by Jon Bachman, who is a local naturalist and historian, who is here to talk to us today about a kind of forgotten area about American history. I'm so excited that you're here today to be a part of our 250th celebration, Jon. Welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot. I mean, I taught school for a million years, and I taught American history for a long, long time. And the events leading up to the Revolution, I got through them. The kids did pretty good, but I'll tell you what, putting this PowerPoint together for you for the 250th and for the library system really helped explain a lot of stuff for me. So here we go, guys. Here's some new knowledge. Here we go, hopefully. All right, let's start it this way. The Leedstown Resolves, the initiation of English colonial resistance. The Leedstown Resolution, or Resolves, signed on February 27th. Today is February 27th, crazy. The Leedstown Resolution, or Resolve, signed on February 27th, 1766, was a formal act of defiance against the British Stamp Act of 1765. And you guys probably know a little bit about that, but let's take some historical steps backward to see how this resolution, we'll call it, or the resolves, how this developed. Between 1754 and 1763, France and England engaged in war across North America to determine which superpower would dominate North America. This rivalry was fueled by a desire to control the lucrative fur trade, vast natural resources, and strategic territories. By 1750, the North American fur trade was a massive transcontinental enterprise that served as the primary economic engine for European expansion. And it created some of history's first multinational corporations and multimillionaires. It stretched from the Atlantic coast deep into the interior, encompassing a vast network of waterways and wilderness outposts. France and Britain claimed the upper Ohio Valley. The British viewed it as essential for westward settlement to expand the population of the 13 colonies. The French saw it as a vital link between their colonies in Canada and Louisiana and critical for their fur trade networks. Intense imperial rivalry between Great Britain and France over control of North America brought both to war. Both the British and the French sought indigenous allies. The British government called for a conference to discuss their strategy. This is known as the Albany Congress. Convened in 1754, it sought to secure an alliance with the Iroquois Confederacy, that's the British, and the Iroquois Confederacy, and to coordinate a unified defense against the French. The architect of the Albany Plan was Benjamin Franklin. He went beyond the notion of military defense, proposing a permanent federation of colonies to manage shared interests like Indian trade, westward expansion, and taxation. So this is a very important point here. This Albany Plan, Franklin proposed a federation of colonies. This is, you guys see what's happening here? Franklin is proposing a permanent federation of colonies, sort of like the United Colonies of Britain or something. Known as the, and look at that, Plan of Union among British American colonies, among the colonies, it was primarily supported by a small group of creative colonial leaders and British imperial officers, officials. They saw intercolonial cooperation as the only way to survive the looming French and Indian War. That's pretty serious stuff, guys. However, the British government worried that a unified colonial government would become too independent. They viewed the Albany Plan as giving too much weight to the democratic elements that could eventually challenge the Crown's authority. That look familiar, guys? Join or Die is the first known political cartoon in American history. It was published by Ben Franklin on May 9th, 1754. The slogan and its accompanying woodcut served as a stark warning to the American colonies: unite for their common defense or face certain defeat. So this was the drawing obviously represents the different colonies and is stressing that, hey, we all have to come together for a common defense or face certain defeat. The Virginia colony declined. The Virginia colony declined to send representatives. However, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, they all voted unanimously in favor of the plan. So what's up with Virginia? I mean, how come we didn't join the group? Seems like kind of like common sense or something. Virginia's leaders, though, were suspicious of any central colonial taxing authority that could override their legislature. So the taxing authority comes up concerning the Albany Plan. Virginia's leaders were suspicious of any central colonial taxing authority. Central colonial taxing authority that would override their own colonial legislatures. The first charter, and check this out, the first charter of Virginia, ready, 1606, assigned the same, quote, liberties, franchises, and immunities as if they had remained in England. This is a key point, guys. This established a legal precedent that the English common law followed the settlers across the Atlantic. So 1606, legal precedent of English common law follows the settlers across the Atlantic. All right. Well, the king intended to give the colonists all the benefits of a government, including the right to produce their own currencies. These are just some of the dozens of examples that I ran into of each of these colonial, the money that was printed in the colonies. You can imagine how complicated it got if you traveled from one colony to another, and you perhaps have heard that, but the king granted them the benefits of producing their own money. Competing claims to the Ohio River Valley, right, you got that, the Ohio River Valley, led to a series of escalatory fort building projects and violent skirmishes between 1753 and 1754. Things were real hot on the frontier, one might say. Following the British defeat at the Battle of Monongahela in 1755, it became obvious, you ready for this, that the British colonial militias, right, could not defeat the French and their indigenous allies. Great Britain officially then declared war on France in May of 1756, expanding the conflict into a global struggle known in Europe as the 7 Years' War. Well, Britain won the war. I'm skipping a lot of history here, but Britain won the war, and the Treaty of Paris that ended it forced France to give up virtually all its North American territory east of the Mississippi River, including Canada and the Ohio Valley to Great Britain. So Britain wins. Check the little map up there. Yeah, there it is. Right. Look at all of this that is British, and then next door, Spain. Where's France? Nowhere. Now, this is amazing, okay? So prepare yourself. Following the 1763 British victory over France, Britain's national debt was 52.33 billion pounds sterling. Now, in today's American currency, the British debt that they had acquired during the war would be, ready, 2,905,921,379,310.35. $2 trillion. That's how bad it was in England after the war. This brought on a serious financial crisis in Britain and led to a shift in colonial British taxation policy. Yeah, right. Britain then began ending decades of what they called lax oversight with the American colonies in favor of stricter regulations and direct taxation. Okay, so Britain is in bad shape. On the flip side, the war had fostered a sense of intercolonial unity through a shared military service and joint operations, right? The colonies had been working together, helped the British defeat the French. For the first time, men from disparate colonies fought alongside one another against a common enemy. This shared hardship broke down regional barriers and created an emerging American identity. You got that, guys? After the war, the British territory in North America significantly expanded. To protect the new western frontier, the British ministry decided to keep a standing army of 10,000 troops in North America. British leaders believed the colonies should shoulder the share of this financial burden, as they were viewed as the primary beneficiaries of the war for global supremacy. Okay. And then, as we know, a series of colonial laws and taxes were designed. First of all, you got the Sugar Act, designed to raise revenue and stop smuggling. The Currency Act of 1764 prohibited colonies from printing paper money, requiring them to pay British merchants in gold and silver, which were in short supply. The Stamp Act, everybody has heard of that, I guess. The first direct tax, a direct tax levied specifically to raise revenue, requiring a tax stamp on all printed materials like newspapers, playing cards, and legal documents. And then there was the Proclamation Line of 1763, and that forbid, and that is up here. This line here is the Proclamation Line. Forbid white settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains. Couldn't go there. This was worked out because the indigenous peoples, and specifically the Iroquois Confederacy, had helped them defeat the French. And so as part of the reward for helping them defeat the French, hey, we guarantee that no settler will go across that line right there. Yeah, okay. These laws required increased enforcement. And to recoup costs, Britain tightened control over trades and cracked down on smuggling. The British abandoned their previously lax oversight, or they called it salutary neglect, regarding taxes, and created a profound ideological break with the colonies. The British took away, it's the old story. If you give people too much freedoms and then come back to try to take the freedoms away, you're going to run into problems. This is an ideological break. No taxation without representation. You guys heard that? The colonists argued because they were not represented in Parliament, they could not be legally taxed by it. An association of prominent colonists was formed in Westmoreland County, Virginia, to resist the enforcement of the British Stamp Act. Westmoreland County is about 45 minutes from Fredericksburg going east on Route 3. So an association of prominent colonists got together to resist the enforcement of the Stamp Act. And on February 27, 1766, 115 residents of Westmoreland County, Virginia, signed the Leedstown Resolution, or Resolves, authored by Richard Henry Lee. There on the left there, this is the facsimile, or the actual, I guess, like photocopy of the document. That's Richard Henry Lee. The signers declared their loyalty. We're loyal to King George. We're standing with you. We're British subjects. But they asserted that it is the birthright privilege of every British subject, and they're British subjects, to be taxed only with their consent by elected representatives, to be legally tried by their peers. So they declared their loyalty, but they said, yeah, no, you can't tax us unless we have representation, and just like you had promised back in 1606. Members, the Westmoreland Resolve group, promised to notify the association of anyone attempting to enforce or comply with the Stamp Act and to meet quickly at the scene of the action to prevent it. Okay, they all promise that anybody doing this, let us know who it is. Each member committed to finding and admitting new signers for the association. Spread the word, right? The signers pledged their life. Does this sound familiar? The signers of this 1766 resolve or resolution pledged their lives and fortunes to restore the liberty or property of any member who suffered from British retaliation because of these resolutions. Lives and fortunes. Considered to be one of the first attempts to formally resist British policy, along with being a forerunner to the Declaration of Independence, the Leedstown Resolutions emerged as a successful initiative in obstructing the enforcement of the Stamp Act and the use of stamp paper. The Leedstown Resolves language of pledging lives and fortunes and the assertion of no taxation without representation directly influenced later documents, including the Declaration of Independence 10 years later. The separation with Britain, culminating in the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and the end of the Revolutionary War in 1783, wasn't just a local tax revolt. It was truly, as historians call it, a hinge point in world history that fundamentally altered the course of government, economics, and human rights. You really don't get much bigger than that, guys. Before the American Revolution, the prevailing belief was the divine right of kings, where power flowed from a monarch down to the people. The break with Britain flipped this pyramid. The break with Britain established the radical idea that a government's legitimacy comes only from the consent of the governed. The state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone not to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. And that is by John Locke, that picture of him there. The American colonial Republican experiment proved that a large-scale republic where citizens elect representatives could function without a king, challenging centuries of European political thought. And a new definition of individual rights emerged. The shift from rights of Englishmen to universal human rights created a moral yardstick that future generations would use to fight for abolition, suffrage, and civil rights. And that's it, guys. There you go.
Wow, Jon, that was such a fantastic presentation. I learned so much about this. Honestly, it was really fascinating to learn more about this underknown piece of American history.
Exactly. No. Tomorrow I'm going to be attending a function of the Westmoreland Resolve, because I used to be at Stratford Hall, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the Northern Neck Historical Society. And it'll be interesting to see their take on it. That's my take on it. So
definitely. Well, hopefully everybody watching this feels like they learned a little bit more, and feel, especially for something that, I mean, honestly, it just, like I said, underknown, but such a really cool key.
Doesn't that tie it all together? Doesn't that tie it all?
Does.
Yeah, if you need to, and this are we still recording or?
We are still recording. Thank you
Oh,
so
okay.
much, everybody who's watching.
Okay.
Take care.